The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own. They may not be the opinions of this network, their groups, or other organizations they may be involved with.
Ganja meditation, ganja my brain. Ganja weed take away my stress and strain. Ganja meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away my stress and pain. Ganja meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away the stress and pain. Ganja is the medication, ganja is the cure. Police of them a fight the marijuana for sure. Purify me heavens and they make me feel pure. 100 way to Cali, we be bring it on tour. Ganja in the meditation, ganja in my clothes. No offense, I'm smoking another one around you. Ganja in me daily, ganja me currency. Ganja is the currency and daily pay. Give me revelation, it's not to get too much and it's been growing. So long, that's why we call it.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Ganja News Update for this Monday, July 29th, 2024, episode 89, here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on cannabis news being reported in mainstream media. I'm joined by my amazing joint host, Tarra Simpson. Hello, Taryn. How are you today?
Oh, Ron, I'm fantastic today. Yesterday, on the other hand, was a bit of a shit show. Played Recovery Day from our Saturday event in Hamilton. So it was a long-ass day, I tell you. By the time you leave home at 10 and get there at 11 and set up and then tear down at 9:30 at night, that's a long day to be out in the heat and, spreading the cannabis love, right?
Right. Spread love, not hate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know we didn't get to talk about your weekend on our pre-show chat here, but I know you attended the Canna Crawl down in Hamilton, and I saw your itinerary there that you had up there. Wow, I don't know how you did it.
Yeah, thank God for my daughter. She's fantastic. We have quite the set up and tear down routine from pre-leaving home to the end of the night. We have things down to an art and science, the two of us.
That's
but
awesome.
It still makes for a very, very long day. And she had her own set up there as well because she was promoting her jewelry and stuff that she makes.
Awesome.
So that was really cool. But
awesome.
Just a long day. So by the time I got home that night, I was like beat. I didn't get in the door till 11:45.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because again, by the time you tear down and then load your car and then get on the road and
get home and unpack.
Right. It was a long day.
And then finally get a chance to just settle. It probably takes a while to just kind of settle down too.
It does. By the time I got in, then of course, you got dog responsibilities.
Exactly.
And by the time you settle, then I was up so early the next morning because again, I'm programmed with the sun. It was up. I was up. So it made for a long day, but I got my lawn cut the next day. I again kept busy. And then burned out in the afternoon, but that's okay. I got to just go veg at the boyfriend's and relax. So
that's awesome. That's
awesome.
I
spent my afternoon doing absolutely nothing.
Well, it certainly sounds like you deserved it, so or earned it.
Yeah. But it was a wicked event. Fantastic. I saw so many people. Janine, our cannabis fairy, was there.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, she took Go Transit down from Toronto and came down and spent the day, wandering around. And her and Courtney, my daughter, were matching. They were both in purple. So
I was going to say it would have to be purple because, of course, that's Janine's. That's Janine's signature color, purple.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was great to see everyone. We had an absolute blast. My favorite event to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I wasn't so far away because it does look like a lot of fun. I saw your video. I saw some of Church Peterborough's videos up on Facebook and that. And oh my goodness, he shaved.
I know. It was crazy.
Doesn't even look like the same person. He was saying he had people didn't even recognize him that he was socializing with earlier.
Yeah, he was there with Canna Helpers. And they were collecting donations for basically the homeless community within Hamilton. Awesome. To do some outreach that way. So they're still accepting donations for anyone who wants to donate. They don't turn them away. They're making care packs to give out to those who unfortunately have fallen on hard times and need some extra help. So any help that people can give is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, that's definitely sounds awesome of what they're doing there. So I guess now, though, we could go on talking forever, but we got our top stories in cannabis news coming right up here. So we got the first one coming up. We've got this one coming to us from StratCan, and this one here is changes coming to Canada's largest cannabis market. This was July 26th by David Brown. The Ontario Cannabis Store is, and we kind of touched on this part of the story a little bit before about their new flow-through program, but right. This some other details on some things that they're going to be changing too. The Ontario Cannabis Store is planning to begin reducing the number of products it carries in its warehouse by several thousand in the coming year and a half as it moves to create a more efficient supply chain amid a glut of product. The move, which will begin in September, comes as several other provincial distributors have made similar moves to handle a growing number of products, limited storage space at central distribution warehouses, and slowing market growth as demand seems to be reaching a saturation point. While growth in the Canadian cannabis industry was exponential following legalization in late 2018, that growth has slowed considerably in recent years, matched by a slowing or even contraction in the retail and production space.
Yeah. To address this, provincial distributors like the OCS, LDB, BGLC, and the MBLL have been paring their offerings and shortening the time they give products to grab customer interest. One way Ontario has been seeking to address the large array of products, currently 5,000 SKUs, and limit warehouse space is through its flow-through program, which created an on-demand list of products that can be ordered through the OCS without being permanently stored in its distribution center. Introduced in 2021, the flow-through program has continued to expand and evolve over time. The newest announcement will introduce changes like multi-tier delivery platform that will try to reduce the program's end-to-end lead times, a common complaint from producers and retailers, as well as additional tools. In addition to these changes, the OCS is also increasing from 4 product calls a year to 5, while reducing the time needed to launch a product into the market and creating a single harmonized submission process. In late August, the OCS will introduce detailed warehouse metrics through its supplier data program, ideally giving producers a chance to improve product availability. The provincial agency will provide more information to the industry on these proposed changes in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, so they're obviously listening to the producers and stuff. And
as well as the OCS stores probably as well, from the sounds of it, waiting on product they've ordered and then it's not on the shelf and right. So that's kind of cool that they're trying to speed that process up, because I mean that is in fact hurting their industry in the legal space, right?
Exactly, and that therefore will also probably reduce some of the costs and well, obviously lead times as well. That they already discussed that in the story, but there will be probably significant cost savings in that, because time is money. You don't have product sitting there. then
storage
that's
is money too, right? The more they have to store, right, versus being able to order it through a flow through without them, the distributor of OCS having to actually store it at their facilities. Going to reduce the overall cost as well. So
that was one thing right at the very beginning of the industry, like when legalization came in and the OCS was created, they had that central distribution warehouse. All the products had to go to there first and then be distributed out to the stores and all that. So that never made sense to me. Like, you're handling this stuff twice.
Double the labor, right? Double
labor, double delivery costs, everything.
Right.
It's like, wow. Like, I know it creates jobs at the same time, but at the same time, it's also creating issues of getting the product on the shelves.
Right. And the more expensive the product is, the less people are spending, right? In today's times, again, people don't have the excess to be spending on high-priced cannabis. And they could get it someplace for cheaper.
Right. Exactly. So you can take this story away if you wish.
Okay. So this one comes to us from the trillium.ca. THC levels wrong on 40% of oils sold by Ontario Cannabis Store. Lab testing shows. Oh boy, oh boy. This one comes to us from Patrick Can, and it was written July 23rd of this year. So levels of THC in cannabis oils were wrong outside the variance allowed by federal cannabis regulations in 40% of samples, a study at McMaster University shows. So levels of THC in cannabis oils sold by the Ontario Cannabis Store compared to the amounts identified on product labels were wrong outside the variance allowed by federal cannabis regulations in 40% of samples at a study at McMaster University showed. Researchers bought 30 different oil products online from the Ontario Cannabis Store, the government-owned monopoly cannabis wholesaler and online retailer, and analyzed them in a lab. One sample contained 120 milligrams more THC than the label indicated. Findings were reported in the Journal of American Medical Association. Tetrahydrocannabidiol, or THC, is the main psychoactive chemical in cannabis. About 20% of cannabis users overall, including both medical and recreational users, use cannabis oil, federal surveys show. However, about half of the medical users reported using oil. Oil was widely available to medical users before legalization.
Medical users may well be trying to find a level of THC that will deal with symptoms, but be low enough to avoid intoxication as they go about their daily lives. Incorrect labeling of THC could lead to inaccurate dosing, the researchers noted. This could be a problem if, for example, a person decides they have reached their ideal dose based on an incorrect label and goes on to overconsume with a correctly labeled product, or vice versa. Reports show that since legalization, many medical users seem to have found it simpler to buy cannabis from the recreational market. And that's unfortunate because there's no medical advice out in the recreational market, and there's a whole different stream of things. They can't even purchase their prescription amount in one purchase in the recreational market.
As far as the recreational market as being OCS, they can't go in there and buy what they're looking for necessarily.
No.
Selections vary by store.
Exactly.
Right. So it's hit and miss. I mean, a lot of medical patients can order through their LPs. But again, depending on your LP, depends on what they offer.
Exactly.
And LPs are also the ones that are supplying OCS, right? Because they have their hands in both pots. So these products that they're producing in the recreational market being mislabeled could affect their medical patients.
Exactly. Exactly. It is worth noting that none of the products we tested contained greater amounts of THC than on the label at any level that would be expected to have different psychoactive effects. Study co-author Amanda Doggett wrote in an email. This was a positive finding because it meant there were no public safety concerns with any of the products we tested. The present issue for individuals using cannabis for medical purposes is that labeling discrepancies may make it difficult to find or maintain an ideal dose, given that our study demonstrated that product to product, the THC and CBD content is sometimes over-labeled, Doggett added. It's not clear whether the oils were shipped from the maker with incorrect values or whether changes happened after that. There is evidence that aluminum can liners can absorb THC. The authors did not suggest a reason for the discrepancies. Obviously, a key concern is that producers are purposely inflating THC values, and there are paths to do this within the regulations, for example, by sending in the most potent sample from a batch of cannabis testing, but we can't say that's why the discrepancies occurred in this study, Doggett wrote.
Right, because they don't have enough information in the study. They just tested some samples. Now, them saying that it's not a public health risk, I would disagree with that, because again, they're putting patients at risk by not accurately labeling what they're getting.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, if they had more THC in an edible, it would be yanked, right?
Exactly.
Because again, too much THC as an edible versus smoking can definitely have a big effect on someone who's not a high dose consumer, and suddenly they're getting even 10 milligrams more THC.
Exactly.
That can have a big intoxicating effect. Not to mention if they're, buying it and then going somewhere else, right? The discrepancy puts them at risk. So, yeah, I have a little bit of an issue with that statement.
Exactly. Right. Great.
Right. Yeah.
So, anyways, you can carry on if you wish. What I can say is where we're at.
Okay. Yep. Okay. What I can say is that all of our samples were tested prior to their expiry date and were stored appropriately at room temperature, so our test results are an accurate reflection of the product as a consumer would receive it, and thus expect the labels to be accurate within the regulatory limits. In a third of cases, the study also found discrepancies between the stated amounts of CBD and THC for products on the OCS website and the amounts on product labels once they were and the amounts on product labels once they actually arrived. The authors will not be releasing the brands involved, Doggett said. I can tell you that we have many brands in the samples of 30 products, and the discrepancies were not limited to just a few brands. Among higher potency products, nearly half were incorrectly labeled as containing THC amounts that were greater than what was indicated by the laboratory testing by more than 15%. Our findings suggest that inaccurate labeling of cannabis oil products in the legal Canadian market is common, the author wrote, given that many medical consumers obtain products from the non-medical market. One implication is inaccurate dosing. Although these findings suggest a need for greater quality control in the legal Canadian cannabis market and undermined the assumption that the legal market is an assurance of accurate labeling. Wow, okay.
Yeah. The Société Québécoise du Cannabis, the SQDC, the Quebec equivalent of the OCS, does do product testing. A request for the lab results under that province's FOI, Freedom of Information Law, was rejected on appeal on a technicality in 2021. In the appeal, 8 national cannabis companies joined the SQDC's efforts to stop the release of the documents. However, the OCS sees testing as the responsibility of the cannabis companies, and failing that, the federal government. Health Canada regulations require that licensed producers establish strict quality assurance and testing procedures for cannabis products and comply with variability limits of THC values for cannabis oils. Spokesperson Amanda Winter wrote in an email. It remains OCS's expectations that its suppliers adhere to these and all Health Canada requirements. Variances between stated and tested cannabinoid levels may occur due to different validation methods employed by various third-party testing laboratories, Winton added. In its response to Health Canada's legislative review of the Cannabis Act and cannabis regulations, the OCS recommended that Health Canada enhance quality controls to ensure ongoing consumer confidence in legal cannabis products. The LCBO, by contrast, has a large product testing lab which runs over 600,000 tests a year on alcohol products. Legislation is in place to mitigate harms associated with contaminated or misrepresented alcohol products, and therefore similar protocols could be implemented for cannabis products. 3 scholars from University of Ottawa suggested in a 2021 journal article. So yeah, tell me again how the illicit market or the legal market is safer.
Right. And we did an article a few weeks ago on that very expensive testing medium of cannabis.
Exactly.
So why are we having these issues still? If there's supposed to be a regulation and only X amount % can be out of whack, which is the same in the pharmaceutical industry, they're allowed a percentage gap, between their production, I guess, right? There can be slight variance. And again, that tiny variance shouldn't make a difference. But when we're having these sorts of issues, that, to me, again, doesn't make the illegal market safer. What it makes it is a money grab.
Exactly. And for people who can't see that, I think you need to do a little bit more research and get some more information and actually look and see what's happening in the market. Because you're probably going to be in for a big eye opener.
I would think so. Absolutely. And I mean, there's lots of legacy people out there that are sending their stuff for testing regularly. You know, depending on which supplier you're at, some of them have their testing lab results on site because they want to know what they're selling to their consumers, right?
Pretty much almost every purchase I've made in the legacy market for bulk amount of weed to meet my medical needs. I can, they don't have the COA or testing results on their website or anything, but all it takes is just a quick message to them and they'll have it to me in my inbox. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is great.
I trust them more than this.
Exactly. So the article goes on to say, asked if the OCS should start an LCBO style testing program, Doggett said. To make such recommendations, we'd want to first do similar product testing with additional samples of products, including other types of cannabis products. If additional evidence suggests similar labeling inaccuracies, as we have found, some changes to the way that labeling accuracy is regulated or monitored would certainly be warranted, she said. And again, right, could that extend into edibles, right? And my big concern is for patient safety at that point. Smoking a little more THC might make you a little sleepy, but for someone on an edible, could have some more extreme effects not experienced. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on to our last story before the break, and this one is a bit of a longer one, so we'll probably skim over some of the later part of it because Marijuana Moment tends to expand on a bunch of other stuff at the end. So we'll kind of skim through some of that. We'll read the most meat and potatoes part of it to cover that. But we do have a few minutes to get through it, so we'll just see where we're at. But this one here is coming to us from Marijuana Moment. Senate committee pushes VA to consider medical marijuana as opioid alternative for military veterans. Now this one was published on July 15th, 2024 by Kyle Yeager. A Senate committee is urging the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, to explore medical marijuana as a alternative to opioids for veterans. And it's also asking the agency to consider allowing its doctors to formally recommend cannabis to their patients in light of the Biden administration's rescheduling push. In a series of reports attached to the spending bills that moved through the Senate Appropriations Committee on Thursday, that would have been Thursday couple of weeks ago, the lawmakers included a variety of marijuana, psychedelics, and hemp sections, including a directive for VA to account for a little-known policy that blocks veterans from receiving GI benefits for educational courses aimed at preparing them to participate in the cannabis industry. The appropriations legislation was approved by the Senate panel just days after a GOP-led House committee passed its versions with reports that include sections critical of the marijuana rescheduling move and raising concerns about impaired driving and intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids.
Interesting, because we here in Canada have been prescribing THC for veterans for quite some time now. So that's kind of cool that the state's finally getting on board with that program. Just saying.
Exactly. That's what I kind of thought. Yeah.
Right? For the Senate's Military, Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Regulated Agencies spending bill, however, the attached report notably urges VA to conduct a study on the medical marijuana as a possible opioid alternative and report back with findings within 1 year of enactment. Reducing opioid use through medical marijuana, the committee encourages VA to conduct a study on the relationship between treatment programs involving medical marijuana that are approved by states, the access of veterans to such programs, and a reduction in opioid use and abuse among veterans. As data is unavailable to do so, findings should be provided to Committee on Appropriations of both houses of Congress within 1 year of enactment of this act. It also says that if federal government does move marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 under the Controlled Substances Act, as the Justice Department has proposed, VA should consider allowing its doctors to issue medical cannabis recommendations to veterans living in legal states. Medical marijuana, the committee recognizes that the Department of Justice's Drug Enforcement Agency has concurred with the Department of Health and Human Services 2023 recommendation to reschedule cannabis in the Controlled Substances Act from its current placement in Schedule 1 to the less restrictive Schedule 3. Should cannabis be rescheduled to a lower schedule, VA should consider issuing guidance allowing VHA doctors and other personnel to discuss, recommend, facilitate access to medical marijuana in states with state legal medical marijuana programs to the extent allowable under federal law.
This is really cool that they're looking at this. Now,
right, but the studies are already out there, even here
in a year. Let's make it happen now. Let's fast track this shit.
Right. Look at all the other medical studies. The information's there. You don't need your own studies. Just get on with it already.
Right. Exactly. The underlying Milcon VA bill that the committee approved would go a step further by requiring that flexibility for VA doctors under an amendment from Senator Jeff Merkley, Democratic Oregon, I guess that would be, that was adopted on Thursday, rather than simply urging consideration of the policy change as in the report language. Another section of the report addresses the VA policy instituted in 2022 that hasn't been previously widely reported, barring the use of GI Bill benefits for educational resources that have the objective to prepare someone to participate in the cultivation, sale, or distribution of marijuana. The committee said VA must submit a report to Congress within 90 days of enactment of the legislation. Availability of GI Bill. There's a quote here. Availability of GI Bill benefits. Oh no, sorry. This is a okay. Yeah, availability of GI benefits. The committee notes that VA policy determinations have restricted the ability of veterans to access their earned benefits, including GI Bill benefits. In particular, the committee is aware of the VA policy advisory dated September 2nd, 2022, and entitled State Legalized Cannabis Training in GI Bill Benefits and Related Addendum, which changed VA policy to no longer allow the use of GI benefits for courses of study determined to have the objective to prepare someone to participate in the cultivation, sale, or distribution of marijuana. Advisory came despite the offering of such courses in states in which either the recreational or medicinal use of marijuana is legally permissible. The committee directs VA to submit a report to the committees of appropriations on both houses of Congress no later than 90 days after enactment of this act regarding the number of veterans who this affected. Wow.
Wow, eh?
Yeah. Okay. The VA secretary would also be required to provide congressional appropriators with a report of the status of studies exploring the therapeutic potential of psychedelics for certain mental conditions within 180 days of enactment under the legislation. And further, and it would be further mandated to initiate a longitudinal study of veterans participating in such therapies and track outcomes over a period of 5 years. Wow. So I don't think we're going to read all of Yeah, we're not going to read all of this because this next section is going into the details of the psychedelic assisted therapy. But I do suggest that people read that. And then there's a separate report for agriculture, rural development, Food and Drug Administration. Was on board with the psychedelics here. And unlike the House version of the agriculture FDA bill, there's no language in the Senate bill that would impose a ban on most consumable hemp products, contentious issue that's embroiled the cannabis industry in recent weeks. So there it goes on to say about hemp cultivar development.
It's interesting that you're now seeing the cannabis and the psychedelic therapy studies that are already happening worldwide, right?
Exactly. And the hemp production systems. So they're going all out on this. And read the rest of the article, folks. I'm basically wanted to bring it up mostly for what the material that was related to the title, because I thought that was really cool. Because we have Joshua R. White down, I can't remember what state he's in, but he runs the marijuana maintenance program.
Okay.
And it's using cannabis as a substitution for opioids or other hard drugs and alcohol and such. Utilizing it as but utilizing it, having it as a one create his goal is to create like a one-stop shop for lack of a better term for people needing assistance. So they'll have access to the cannabis that they need. They'll have access to the therapy, other therapy modalities that they need, counseling and all that, all under one roof.
Right, because just giving them cannabis isn't going to fix their opioid addiction, right? And we know that. Exactly. It's a bulk of integrated therapy as well as supports within the community to help them stay off of opioids by using cannabis as a substitution.
Right. Exactly. But it has to encompass a whole bunch of modalities and support systems.
Absolutely.
There for anyone that's wanting the help then and now. You gotta give them that help then and now. You can't say, "Oh, we got to wait and book for you 3 months." Well,
right.
By that afternoon, it might be too late.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we need more immediate intervention for these people and therapies. Absolutely.
Exactly. So anyways, we've hit the end of our first 3 stories here. So you know what that means. It's medication time.
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles making mainstream media news.
And we'll be back in just a few minutes here on Ganja News Update here on NOK Network. Wait for it. 2 buttons. Here we go. It's slow. Technical
Knock Network presents Ganja News Update. Join joint host Tarra Simpson and Ron McNabb as they bring you the global cannabis news update. Catch the Ganja News Reporters weekly on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time as they cover cannabis news from around the globe in a 60-minute video news podcast. Stay up to date with Ganja News Update, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Follow and subscribe to Knock Network on your webpage, social media, and streaming sites, including Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Rumble.
Psychedelic Tuesdays on NOK Network. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Psychedelic Report. Ufa Alvarius is scouring the newsletters for stories being reported in mainstream media on psychedelic records and passing them on to Bobby Puppets and Karen Simpson so they can bring you, our listeners, in their 60-minute video news podcast. Join us for Tuesday Evening News, weekly at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for all your news and information in the world of psychedelic medicine. Follow and subscribe to NOK Network on our webpage, social media, and streaming sites, including YouTube and Rumble.
Put it away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. The IWK 710 Daily Sesh is a virtual gathering where consumers meet up or a toke and some laughs at 7 p.m. Eastern nightly. Originally aired on Info with Kim's social media page, the IWK 710 Daily Sesh is now also podcasted on NOK Network. Rotating joint hosts bring you a variety of content during this 30-minute virtual smoke sesh. Take a break from the stresses in life and put it away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. Podcasted nightly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on NOK Network.
Advertising space available at NOK. contact us for a rate sheet at knocknetwork.com. Send us a message on our social media platforms or email us at info@noknetwork.com.
Hey, dudes and dudettes. Enjoy the show, man.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Ganja News Updates on NOK Network.
That's right. We have another set of stories coming at you, making cannabis news. So let's get at it. And here we go. Clicking buttons. There we go. This next story is coming to us from Normal. Normal submits public comments to DEA calling for the removal of cannabis from Schedule 1. And this was also from July 15th, 2024. Normal has submitted its public comments to the Drug Enforcement Administration in support of the reclassification of botanical cannabis. Normal concurs with views expressed by the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, that cannabis has a currently accepted medical use and that its relatively low abuse potential is inconsistent with the criteria required for substances in either Schedule 1 or Schedule 2. The HHS appropriately determined that neither scientific evidence nor real-world clinical experience support cannabis inclusion in either category, Normal acknowledged in its comments.
Yeah, specifically, Normal cites a 2022 national survey of family practice doctors, internists, nurse practitioners, and oncologists that concluded over two-thirds, 68.9%, of clinicians surveyed believe that cannabis has medical uses, and just over a quarter, 26.6%, have ever recommended cannabis to a patient. Normal also highlights a 2024 scientific analysis that determined that cannabis risks of dependence and abuse potentials are substantially lower than those posed by many legal and illegal and legal substances, including tobacco and alcohol.
Yep.
Normal concludes the determination by HHS that cannabis use does not possess the same public health burden as does the use of alcohol, unscheduled, tobacco, unscheduled, or any other controlled substances currently regulated in lower schedules of the CSA, for example, benzodiazepines, is consistent with decades of worldwide scientific literature. While HHS ultimately recommends transferring cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, Normal wishes to emphasize that these findings similarly provide a factual basis for removing cannabis from the CSA entirely. Although the HHS is not recommending descheduling at this time, Normal asserts that this position is the most appropriate one and that descheduling cannabis should be adopted by future administrations. And I would agree with that. Like it's a plant.
Same in Canada. Remove it from the controlled substances list.
Exactly. Like why
you can still have regulations on it, just like alcohol and tobacco, but the worldwide studies say that the public health burden is nowhere near the public health burden that alcohol and tobacco put on society.
Oh, and I can attest to that as a cigarette smoker. Do you know how hard it is for me to not smoke? I can go without my cannabis if I have to. I've done it in different circumstances. Mm-hmm. However, cigarettes, good freaking luck, man. I have tried to quit over the years. It's more difficult than giving up cannabis. So, maybe we need to look at that here in Canada.
Exactly. And then there is the full text of Normal's public comments are available by clicking that link that is right there where I've highlighted. And public comments were submitted on behalf of California Normal are also available. And then there's a link there. The DA is accepting public comments through. Okay, so this is over now. So July, because we're now July 29th.
Yeah.
So those wishing to provide. Okay, so that's already closed. But to date, nearly 30,000 people have provided public comments, and that was on as of July 15th when this article was written, and they still had till July 22nd. So
Right.
over 30,000. So, anyways, that's exciting news to see there. And this is all what we expected to have unfold. You're seeing everything, all the back end legal stuff and all that come forth, and the framework being built for the eventual legalization.
Right. Yeah. So this next article comes from stratcan.com. Aurora Cannabis receives additional German licenses. Oh, cool. July 25th of this year, by Sarah Clark. A second cannabis company with operations in Canada announced this week that it's expanding its footprint into the emerging German cannabis market. Aurora Cannabis announced on July 25th that the Alberta-based producer has been granted 2 licenses by Germany's Federal Institute for Drug and Medical Devices under the country's new Medical Cannabis Act. The announcement follows one made earlier this week by the American cannabis company Tilray, which has several operations in Canada. I didn't realize they were US-based. That's interesting. On April 1st of 2024, cannabis was reclassified in Germany as a non-narcotic, allowing adults to possess small amounts in the process of moving towards a regulated commercial supply chain. The country recently began allowing participation in cannabis production clubs. Very cool.
Yeah, Aurora and Tilray, through their subsidiary Afria, are 2 of the 3 existing domestic medical cannabis producers in Germany, along with Germany-based Demacan. The latter announced on July 25th that it was now the first German company to receive a cultivation permit for medical cannabis under MedCan G. The license allows for the cultivation of up to 7 different cultivars. Aurora's new licenses add to the company's ongoing cannabis production in Germany, which the company says has been underway for 2 years. Under the new license, Aurora is allowed to cultivate an improved additional product, with the company saying it has plans to expand its offerings in the German market. Aurora also expects to be issued a cannabis R&D license in Germany, which would allow the trial of up to 7 additional novel cultivars at the company's local EU GMP facility in Luna, Germany. We thank the German government for its continued investment in the growth of medical cannabis, made possible by decriminalization, which will improve access to medical cannabis patients all across Germany, says Michael Simon, president of Aurora Europe. Being one of the few companies to receive an enhanced license is a testament to Aurora's established leadership in the region and unparalleled commitment to making available highest quality cannabis. We now have the framework to extend our portfolio, invest in domestic research, and leverage Aurora's global cultivation expertise locally. Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Aurora's medical cannabis production facility in Leuna, Saxon-Anhalt in East Germany has been in operation since 2021. The facility cultivates approximately 1,000 kilograms of cannabis flower annually for the medical supply chain. In addition to Canada and Germany, Aurora operates in the UK, Poland, and Australia. Wow, they're like global.
Yeah, I had no idea.
No, me either. That's interesting. They got their hands in every country at this point that they can. Germany is being eyed by large cannabis companies like Aurora and Tilray, as it's seen as a gateway into the expanding European market, and is considered the largest medical cannabis market in Europe, with a population of 83 million more than double that of Canada. So again, they see dollar signs. Cool.
Yeah, and the medical cannabis in Canada is decreasing, like the number of registered patients.
Right, because they can just do it.
Yeah, instead of going through all the rigmarole of having to see the doctor and all that, and send all their stuff into Health Canada to get approved and everything, they just end up buying from the recreational market, saying screw it or whatever, or find a legacy person to buy from.
Yeah, exactly. Or they just grow their own plants, or there's so many different reasons, right?
So it's no wonder that Aurora is branching out globally.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
they see the dollar signs, as you say.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, Tilray, another large publicly traded company, cannabis company with operations in Canada, announced it had received the first new cannabis cultivation license issued in Germany. In February, Germany passed the German Medical Cannabis Act, expanding the country's medical cannabis laws. Tilray's Afria RX has been present in the medical cannabis space in Germany since March 2019, which I knew that, when the company was awarded a license for the cultivation of medical cannabis in Germany from the German Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices, the BFARM. Other European countries, including Switzerland, Spain, France, the Czech Republic, Malta, the Netherlands, and Ukraine, are also considering or in the process of implementing various cannabis markets being eyed by companies like these.
Interesting. Yeah. Germany legalized cannabis this past March, with the law coming into effect in stages. On April 1st, personal possession and cultivation became legal. On July 1st, the country began allowing cannabis growing clubs. However, the country does not allow the sale of cannabis except for medical purposes. The bill also made amendments to the country's medical cannabis laws, paving the way for Tilray's most recent announcement. Germany first legalized cannabis flowers for medical purposes in 2017. Although annual domestic production was capped at 10,400 kilograms, since that time, the amount of cannabis prescribed under the program has steadily increased. Fed by imports from countries like Canada, in the first 3 quarters of 2017, there were just 530 kilograms of cannabis imported into Germany. By the completion of the first 3 quarters of 2023, that had increased to 14,315 kilograms. Cannabis exports from Canada have been increasing and are expected to continue, especially with the issue of oversupply still plagues the Canadian market. Expanding production into new markets like Germany allows companies to better address supply issues with emerging markets without going through the extensive export requirements and costs from Canada.
Yeah. What I see happening, what I've heard other people saying, what could happen is, as your Canadian LPs and US LPs diverge into the global market, they're going to put less and less product out into their own local markets. And like Canada, from what I understand, doesn't allow import of cannabis, but they're a huge exporter of cannabis. That's where they're making their money. That's where they make their money on the exports. And so because you also have to think, so many people are growing their own now here too. So that has an effect on what the LPs are selling as well.
Absolutely.
And then you get the affordability issue. There's another thing. And so I think you're going to end up seeing Canada eventually allowing imports in from countries like Mexico and stuff. And you're going to get such a lower grade product coming in, but people are still going to buy it because you're going to still have a market for that, because there's so many people that I know that ask, "Oh, what strain is that?" I don't know. It's weed.
Right.
Like, they don't care.
No, it's some people.
And in the medical market, we care.
Absolutely.
In the true medical market, with patients who are serious about healing themselves and using this any other conditions or whatever, you want to know what strain you're smoking or consuming or whatever, right? You want to know all of this. You don't want garbage bunk stuff.
Nope.
Right?
Exactly.
So anyways, we got our last story here. We'll try to get through this one quickly. We do still have a few minutes here. This one's kind of cool because we reported a few weeks ago that Thailand was going to be recriminalizing cannabis, but doesn't seem to be so.
That's fantastic news.
Exactly. So you can take this one away if you wish.
Yeah, so this one comes to us from Reuters.com. Thailand to legislate medical marijuana signals no recriminalization. And that comes to us from July 23rd of this year. And I cannot pronounce.
You don't have to say that. You don't have to say. You don't have to say the authors.
So this comes
cool picture though. Cool picture.
What's that?
I want this picture for my studio.
Yeah, it's a cool picture, eh? The Dr. Green with the great big. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, the big one up, big leaf up on the top too.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Carry
on.
So Thailand will work towards legislating marijuana for medical use, a deputy prime minister said Tuesday, signaling a U-turn on the plans to recriminalize the plant and other changes in the government's hazy position on cannabis. Thailand in 2022 became one of the first countries in Asia to decriminalize marijuana, doing so without a law to govern it or clear regulations in place to prevent its recreational use. The move, however, led to an explosion of recreational cannabis use and the launch of tens of thousands of cannabis cafes and retailers enabling it, prompting public concern about its abuse. Deputy Premier Antonu something or other, whose party was instrumental in pushing for marijuana liberalization, said the Prime Minister Sathra Thasavan has now agreed that legislation was the appropriate step to take. I thank the Prime Minister for considering this matter and deciding on issuing an act, Anutin said.
The government has maintained recreational use of cannabis was not allowed, and Sathra, who belongs to a different party, had said he would recriminalize it due to its concerns over abuse, with an exception for medical use and research. It will be a matter of law and debated in Parliament, where there is already a draft law. Secretary General to the Prime Minister Praman Suridej told Reuters, I know I screwed that up, but I gave it a try.
You tried to try.
Whether it's a narcotic or not, it is up to Parliament. A draft law on marijuana was submitted to the legislature under the previous administration, but Parliament was dissolved ahead of an election last year without a vote taken. It was not immediately clear whether steps would be taken to crack down on recreational cannabis use, as Sathra has advocated. Thailand has seen rapid growth of a domestic retail sector for marijuana, and industry projected to be worth up to $1.2 billion by 2025. Wow. Anutin's Bom Jaitai Party, the second biggest in the ruling coalition, has advocated for marijuana for health and economic purposes, but officially not for recreational use, and has argued against recriminalizing it. Natab Horn Baum Hakul, managing partner at government affairs consultancy Vero Advocacy, said the latest development indicated there was now better coordination between parties in government on the complex cannabis issue.
Yeah.
Oh, just a little bit. I'll read that one last sentence. The policy reversal reflects greater alignment between the coalition parties when compared to last year when the government formed, Nada Born said. So It's still exactly not clear how they're going to do it all, but at least they're going to be leaving it up to Parliament, they said. And so there's going to be some kind of law enacted, at least for medical cannabis. So we'll see. We'll see in the coming weeks, months, what comes of that. We'll be definitely following.
Yeah, we don't want to see the backslide, right? Like we know this is a plant, and it's actually less harmful to their community than alcohol and cigarettes, but yet they want to like ban it for any sort of use if they can.
Yeah.
So bizarre.
The stigma is still out there because there's a lot of people that still believe that it will incite violence in people.
Right.
And it's going to make people go mad.
Yeah.
Well, here's the news, people. Anyone who thinks that, there's a lot of us that, well, I can't say us as in me because I've never been in the underground scene of the cannabis world, but there's a lot of people that are consuming in the underground community of it, and the world's not falling apart because of it.
No.
The world's falling apart because of other issues. In fact, I think cannabis could probably help put the world back together. Cannabis and mushrooms. Cannabis, mushrooms, and hemp.
Exactly.
The trinity right there.
Yeah, I have not ever met a violent person who is consuming those substances. So just saying. Yeah. Alcohol, whole other story.
Like we all have our own issues, but it's not that substance that usually is the issue.
Exactly. There's underlying issues.
So anyways, I guess that is that's the end. So I do want to thank you all for joining us here again this week here on Ganja News Update on NOK Network, and for tuning into our video podcast on NOK Network's Rumble and social media pages, such as LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. And over to you, Tarra.
We really hope you've enjoyed our update on mainstream media coverage of cannabis information from around the globe.
And many thanks to our sponsors for making this show possible. And thank you to my joint host, Tarra Simpson, and to you, our listeners, for joining us here each week on Education Mondays with Ganja News Update here on NOK Network. Peace, everyone, and good night.
Ganja my meditation, ganja my brain. Ganja we take away my stress and strain. Ganja my meditation, ganja my brain. Marijuana take away my stress and pain. Ganja my meditation, ganja my brain. Marijuana take away the stress and pain. Ganja is the medication, ganja is the cure. Police of them a fight the marijuana for sure. Purify me essence and they make me feel pure. 100 way to Cali, we need bring it on tour. Ganja in the meditation, ganja in my clothes. No offense, I'm smoking another one around you. Ganja in the daily, ganja me currency. Ganja is the currency and daily pay. Give me the revelation, it's not to get too much credit, it's been growing, so long that's what we call it.